Skybinder is one of the latest games to be released onto the App Lab, a hidden corner of the Oculus ecosystem where independent developers can release their games and projects without the hassle of sideloading or approval. MacuXR's laid-back puzzle experience is one of over 500 apps that are available via this service at the current time. As you can imagine, a lot of these are in progress, unfinished, unpolished, or experimental in nature, and as such, it can sometimes be extremely difficult to separate the digital wheat from the chaff. Skybinder is a minimalist puzzle game in every way, and I know there are those of you that will hear the word minimalist and greet it with disdain, and honestly, I'm right there with you. This has become an overused adjective, often used to obfuscate a simple lack of quality, but if you bear with me, and with Skybinder, you'll learn that on this occasion at least, minimalist is not a byword for simplistic or basic. Each of the game's 20 puzzles begins when a series of numbered circles pop into view into a vast space. Given a cursory glance, you might mistake this for some kind of 3D dot-to-dot. Fortunately, that isn't the case. The player attacks each puzzle by joining the dots together to make triangles, and then joining the triangles together to make zoological models. You need to find the right 3 dots to join together to form a triangle, with the number on each dot representing the number of other dots to which it must be linked. Each constellation of dots can be rotated about the y-axis, it can be raised and lowered, pulled towards you, expanded and shrunk. The numbered dots central to the game's mechanics are always facing the player to ensure that their digits can be seen at all times, no matter how you manipulate the puzzle. This is all handled with very slick controls. Primarily using the grip triggers, you grab, turn, pull, push and stretch in the most intuitive way you can imagine. It all feels remarkably physical, and while this isn't a new use of VR, it is a particularly sharp implementation of it. As the models get larger and more detailed, the feeling of physicality also increases. Expanding a puzzle so that it's large enough that it engulfs you on all sides is incredibly satisfying, and in the later game, key to the solution of some of the puzzles. Sound effects in the game are light and pared back. There's no background music at all, but there are also no lives, no timer, none of the usual limitations or restrictions. You build the model, one triangle at a time, and when complete, the animal in all its low polygon glory floats off into a big shimmering portal that magically appears to whisk it away. To viewers of a certain vintage, the phrase low polygon probably conjures images of Sega's Virtua series of games from the 1990s, and there's absolutely a little of that in how Skybinder presents itself. Mostly though, the game's hard white edges and two-tone polygon aesthetic reminded me most of Tetsuo Mizuguchi's turn-of-the-century masterpiece Rez. This similarity is especially true in the later levels, when the complexity increases far beyond that of the opening rudimentary goldfish to deliver some genuinely beautiful designs. In fact, I grew so enamoured of the in-game version of these models that I was sometimes a little disappointed when they transitioned to their final form before floating away into the distance. As you may have gathered, there are no extra trappings beyond the in-game elements. Everything takes place in a wide open space, where even the controllers in your hands are reduced to simple spheres. This is just you, the puzzle, and the softly chiming piano chords that greet a successfully completed triangle. This is a game that wears its Zen badge with pride. If you've ever played one of these before, you'll be immediately familiar with the sound design. The usual melancholic piano notes are all here, sparsely accompanied by soft whooshes, clicks and pops as you manipulate the puzzle. You'll hear a couple of notes every now and again if you hang around long enough in the menu, but there's still nothing that would constitute anything as complex as a piece of music. As appropriate and pleasant as the sound is, it's definitely the weakest area of the game. There's not really anything wrong with it per se, but it's very much the same collection of noises you will have heard many times before if you have any interest in this kind of laid-back puzzle experience. In terms of delivering what it sets out to, Skybinder is otherwise an almost total success. There is another area of concern in the hint system, which feels a little unpolished. Rather than simply prod you in the right direction when you become stuck, it immediately displays what the finished puzzle is going to look like. Seeing the product of your industry is very much the motivation and reward for your efforts in the game, so having it simply displayed to you is borderline self-destructive. Some may also be put off by Skybinder's brevity. I'd estimate 4 to 6 hours to see the game through to completion, and when the puzzles are done, they're done. You can select them to play again from the main menu, but, as I've just said, when motivation for completing the puzzles is seeing what they look like in the end, knowing that before you start is hugely detracting to the whole experience. There is a currently greyed out shopping trolley icon in the settings menu, so there may be a plan to support the game later on with further content. For a game that prides itself on being relaxing and contemplative, Skybinder is also furiously addictive. I lost myself in its calm atmosphere and compulsive gameplay enough to complete it in just 2 sittings. Had I not succumbed to this annoying habit I have of falling asleep at least once every 24 hours, I could probably have done so in just 1 long session. A big factor in this addictiveness is the way the difficulty curve is handled, as well as progression from one puzzle to the next. Skybinder leads you from the initial puzzles made of less than a dozen dots to those later on that use more than 100 without a hitch. Every puzzle starts with the search for a single triangle, and succeeding in this simple task always feels like a small win. As you work your way through completing the model 1 triangle at a time, it's all too easy to get caught up in the game's flow. Skybinder never becomes fast-paced, but at its best it moves to an assured timbre that is entirely in keeping with the mood and style of everything else in the game. As you complete one puzzle and it drifts away, the next one begins immediately. As a new set of dots pops into view, it's impossible not to wonder what animal they will eventually become and to start your search for that first triangle. Skybinder's approach can sometimes veer dangerously close to being too basic, particularly in the main menu and the music or lack thereof. Ultimately, however, it does achieve a great balance of simplicity and style. For better and occasionally for worse, Skybinder is minimalist in every single way. Its super stylized look and laid-back delivery mask a compulsively addictive Zen puzzler that will soothe you along to its final puzzles all too quickly. 7. Compelling. If you like what we're doing here at 6D of Reviews, please click that subscribe button and you'll be alerted immediately whenever new content becomes available.